The movie opens with a man named Bear passionately pouring his heart out and confessing his feelings to his longtime crush, Nikki. However, his friend Ian abruptly interrupts the emotional moment. It is quickly revealed that Bear was simply practicing his speech to confess to a local waitress, not Nikki. Even though the waitress overhears and finds the confession touching, Ian thinks the entire display is painfully cringy and embarrassing. Ian urges Bear to stop practicing, go flirt with Nikki, and playfully bring up her old childhood nickname, Freaky Nikki. Bear immediately shoots the idea down, arguing that Nikki absolutely despises the name because she was mercilessly bullied with it for years. Later, Bear returns home to a horrifying discovery. His cat, Sandy, has died after ingesting a bottle of pills that had been carelessly left out. Completely devastated, Bear quietly cleans up his cat's remains, disposes of them in the garbage, and breaks down in tears. That night, while mournfully scrolling through Nikki's social media, Bear receives a sudden call from her. She invites him out to dinner for a trivia night. Bear tries to make excuses, but eventually agrees. At dinner, Nikki drops a bombshell. She has officially turned in her 2 weeks' notice at work. This makes Bear realize his time is running out, and he must confess his feelings tonight. But their conversation is interrupted when Nikki accidentally drops her precious crystal necklace down a floor drain, leaving her incredibly frustrated. Determined to replace it, Bear visits an esoteric novelty shop to buy a new crystal necklace. While browsing, a mysterious item captures his attention, a one-wish willow. The shopkeeper explains it is a special twig that grants a single wish the moment it is snapped in half. Bear becomes fascinated and purchases it, though the store owner delivers a stern warning not to come back complaining about the consequences afterward. Later, Bear arrives at a bar to meet Ian, Nikki, and another friend, Sarah. Throughout the night, Bear desperately tries to find the perfect moment to confess his feelings to Nikki, but the courage never comes. At one point, he ends up alone with Sarah and opens up about Sandy's death, allowing her to comfort him. As the night winds down, the group wants to continue the fun, but Nikki wants to go home, so Bear offers to drive her. On the way, Nikki talks about her future, explaining she quit her job because she dreams of becoming a successful writer. When they arrive outside her house, Nikki mentions that Sarah seemed interested in Bear and had been asking about him earlier. Bear clarifies that he only sees Sarah as a friend. Before Nikki leaves, Bear playfully but foolishly calls her Freaky Nikki. She gets upset and asks him never to call her that, causing him to immediately apologize. Sensing the tension, Nikki directly asks if he likes her, stating that if he does, now would be the perfect time to say it. But like an idiot, Bear completely freaks out, falsely claiming they are just good friends. Disappointed, Nikki says fine and heads to her house. Frustrated and furious with himself, Bear takes out the one-wish willow twig. He loudly wishes that Nikki would love him more than anyone else in the world, and violently snaps it in half. Suddenly, something bizarre happens. Nikki approaches his car again, but she is acting incredibly weird. She offers sudden condolences about his dead cat and unexpectedly invites him inside. Confused, Bear refuses. Nikki then climbs into his car and breaks down crying, revealing that her father is dying of cancer. Claiming she doesn't want to be alone, Bear decides to take her to his house. At Bear's home, Nikki apologizes for acting weird and asks to sleep beside him. A nervous Bear agrees, but the moment they lie down, she suddenly undresses and begins passionately kissing him. Bear kisses her back, but Nikki abruptly freaks out, pulls away, and blames a sudden panic attack. She apologizes again and unexpectedly breaks down, crying out of nowhere, leaving a bewildered Bear to comfort her. Around midnight, Bear searches online to see if the one-wish willow really works, finding deeply mixed reviews. When he returns to his room, he finds Nikki quietly staring at him in the dark. She asks to lie with him. He hesitates but agrees, and they fall asleep. The next morning, Bear wakes up to find that Nikki has set up a bizarre, unsettling altar for his dead cat in the kitchen. Later, they head to the music store where they work with Ian and Sarah. Ian is excited to see them together and asks what happened. Bear explains Nikki's dad has cancer and she had a mental breakdown. Ian is suspicious. He points out that her dad lives in another state, and Nikki doesn't even care about him. After Bear details the night's events, Ian assumes Nikki was just high on drugs. All day, Nikki cannot stop obsessively staring at Bear during their shifts. At the end of the day, Nikki goes back to acting normally and leaves with Ian. Later, Ian calls Bear to confirm he didn't notice anything unusual. But their call is interrupted when Nikki arrives at Bear's doorstep. She apologizes for last night, shockingly revealing she was on MDMA. She admits she has liked Bear for a long time but never knew how to express it. She asks if he has feelings for her too, to which an excited Bear says yes. In the following days, the two officially start dating. They seem incredibly love-de-vey all the time, making Bear feel like the happiest man in the world. However, during a dinner date, Ian calls Bear repeatedly. Bear finally steps away to answer. Ian drops a terrifying warning. He looked into Nikki's dad and confirms the cancer story is a lie. Furthermore, Ian reveals that during trivia night, Nikki explicitly told Sarah she only sees Bear as a little brother. Ian worries Nikki is mental and has ill intentions, but a shocked Bear hangs up on him. Bear returns to the table, where Nikki hands him a precious gemstone that belonged to her mom, expressing that she can't live without him, testing Ian's theory. Bear confronts her about her father's cancer. Instantly, Nikki's mood violently shifts. She starts screaming and making a massive public scene, yelling, "I thought we were having a nice date." The nightmare escalates. At 3 a.m., Bear wakes up to find Nikki isn't in bed. She is creepily watching him sleep. She tearfully complains he doesn't love her as much as she loves him. After he reassures her, she suddenly screams, grabs a vase of flowers, behaves erratically, sets it down, and calmly gets back into bed. The next morning, Bear is horrified to discover Nikki has cut pieces of his hair. She apologizes and hands him a packed lunch. When Bear tries to leave for work, he is shocked to find the door sealed with a large amount of duct tape. She suggests he stay home, but he manages to force it open. As he leaves, Nikki smiles creepily and pees on herself. During his lunch break, Bear opens the lunchbox to find disturbing photos Nikki took of him sleeping. While eating his sandwich, Sarah approaches. Noting how weird his sudden relationship is, Sarah's father arrives to deliver a rejection letter from an art school, leaving Sarah waiting on word from one last school. During the chat, Sarah spots a note on Bear's lunchbox. "What's the verdict, cat?" Bear looks down at his sandwich, sees a severed cat paw hidden inside, and immediately vomits. While driving home, Ian questions Nikki's behavior, thinking Bear is taking advantage of a struggling girl. An offended Bear insists Nikki is the one who won't leave him alone. Ian invites Bear to a boys' night out, but explicitly bans Nikki. Back at home, Bear spots the One Wish Willow box in his car and calls the support number. The operator informs Bear that the wish cannot be altered or canceled. It remains active as long as he lives, only ending upon his death. The man asks if Bear wants to split the wish so they can eventually get married, but a panicked Bear quickly hangs up. Inside the house, he finds Nikki completely filthy in the same spot. While she showers, Bear asks if she cooked his cat, but receives no response. When Bear mentions boys' night, Nikki manipulates her way into coming, noting that Sarah is also attending. At Ian's house, the group plays Jenga. Nikki tells a disturbing, incestuous version of Hansel and Gretel. When a kissing rule is applied to the game, Nikki aggressively takes Sarah's seat, throws a massive fit, breaks a glass bottle, and stabs herself in the face. She refuses hospital treatment. Back home, after Bear scolds her, she chillingly states that she is Freaky Nikki and threatens suicide if he won't sleep with her. The next morning, Sarah texts Bear to meet in the park. Just before he leaves, he hears the real Nikki's voice trapped inside her own mind, begging him to kill her. Bear meets Sarah, who drops a massive revelation. She and Ian had been hooking up for 2 years, and Nikki is just using Bear. Suddenly, Nikki appears from nowhere and brutally kills Sarah. She forces a horrified Bear to help move the body into another vehicle. Discovering Sarah's final college acceptance letter in the car, Bear is crushed by unbearable guilt and screams at the top of his lungs. In a panic, Bear returns to the esoteric shop, begging the owner for another wish to fix his mistake. The owner refuses, stating his single wish is spent. Bear tries to break the twig but is physically unable. He runs to Ian, explaining the entire curse, and begs Ian to buy a willow and wish the whole thing undone. Ian, thinking it is absolute nonsense, jokingly wishes for $1 billion instead. Instantly, massive amounts of money start pouring into the room. Ian stares in disbelief while Bear rages at his friend for wasting their only chance. Bear buys a final one-wish willow. Hoping to force Nikki to fix the curse herself, he tracks her to the middle of the forest, where he finds a horrific shrine set up around Sarah's naked dead body positioned in a chair. Nikki emerges, wearing Sarah's stolen clothes and wielding a gun, screaming at Bear for not loving her. Suddenly, an excited Ian rushes into the clearing to brag about his $1 billion. Irritated by the interruption, Nikki shoots Ian dead on the spot. Nikki forces Bear to express his love. He reluctantly soothes her with a hug and manages to take the gun from her. Seeking an escape, Bear excuses himself and locks himself inside a nearby bathroom. Nikki bangs furiously on the door, crying about her obsession. Bear tries to shoot himself to end the curse, but cannot pull the trigger. Instead, he opens the cabinet, finds the same pills that killed his cat, and swallows a lethal dose. Seconds later, Bear regrets his decision and tries to throw up, but he suddenly hears the magical jingle of a willow twig snapping outside the door. He stops. Bear exits the bathroom. Nikki is waiting, smiling calmly at him. He smiles back, and they move closer and kiss. Nikki had used her own one-wish willow wishing for Bear to become just as blindly obsessed with her, but the magic is cut short. The overdose takes effect, and Bear collapses dead into her arms, because Bear died. The original curse tethering her mind is finally broken. The real Nikki snaps back to her senses. The movie ends as she looks around at the horrific, bloody massacre she caused, sobbing hysterically and screaming at Bear's corpse, "What did you do?" Thanks for watching. If you enjoy the recaps, PLs like and subscribe. See you in the next recap.